Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast with Rich Ferraro.
Hello and welcome to another edition of 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. It's Rich here, and this is YATESY'S Espresso Bar, where we take a bit of time out from the match reports to discuss the latest of what's going on around and about the world of Nottingham Forest.
Welcome to YATESY'S Espresso Bar.
Now, today's show, we're splitting into two parts. In a little while, we'll be joined by friend of the podcast, Steve Burns, to talk about what's going on with the men's team and the progress they've made since Sean Dyche has taken over as the gaffer. But first of all, it's time to join our friend and our women's team correspondent, Matt Turpin. How you doing, Matt?
I'm pretty good, Rich. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good. Countdown to Christmas has started. What the listeners can't see is I've got a party hat on and a massive bag of Quality Street next to me. So, and I'm about a third of the way through a bottle of mulled wine. I'm just saying. Okay. When we're talking about the women's team, quite a lot of the time, there's not many people who've actually seen the games, because essentially you either go to the games and there's, a reasonable attendance, but not as many as the men's team. Obviously, you'll get some people who'll go onto YouTube and social media and see the goals. And as always, it's worth doing just purely if you see Chantal Boylorca's scored a goal, check it out because it's usually a good one. And then this time, last Saturday, Forest were on the telly, like as in terrestrial telly that even your nana could watch. And it was because they were drawn away at Wolverhampton in the Adobe Women's FA Cup, and it was shown on Channel 4 amongst other places. So first of all, Matt, that's nice to see, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A bit surprising. The matches are on YouTube. They're very available, and obviously get yourself down to City Ground. It's very well priced. It's a reasonable day out. But to actually be put on Channel 4 was cheers for that, Channel 4. One bone to pick with them, though, and with TNT, as I know they did this, is they describe this as a local derby. Well, we were local rivals.
Yeah.
It's like, what the heck? You've got Loughborough, Rugby, Derby, Leicester, Sheffield, all of these closer. But yeah, I think to them it's just like Midlands, innit?
Midlands, innit? In fairness, the commentator who was Flo Pollock did say, yes, it's East versus West Midlands at some point. So I think right. Flo got it. But yeah, beyond that, I think there was a... and to add a bit of spice to the occasion, obviously Wolves were a team who were pushing us all the way last season as Forest went for promotion and got it. And there have been a number of tasty occasions between the two teams, but it's added to as well by the number of ex-Forest players in the Wolves team. Sure. There were 4 of them, weren't there, Matt?
Yeah. Again, yeah. We as you were saying, they did push us pretty hard last time. We thought we were cruising to a very easily promotion. We knew we were getting promoted. I think, not to be overtly arrogant, but it did seem on paper that it shouldn't be much of a challenge. But they surprised us. Yeah, they took us right to the end. And
also, when there's only one promotion place, and
well, for sure, yeah.
And last season. Yeah, last season, Forest had splashed the cash. They'd gone fully professional. They'd splashed the cash, and I think the idea was actually we should be not only good enough to get promoted, but good enough to have the foundations for a season in WSL2. And so it's proven. But Wolves really did push hard, and I think we were the only team to actually beat Wolves, weren't we?
I think so. Yeah, we ourselves were unbeaten, but they were. It went down to the last game of the season, although mathematically they could have done it, but it would have meant a massive goal shift in terms of points. So it wasn't really happening. But the fact it was so close is telling. They're second. I think they're second of WSL2 at the moment. They've got a game in hand and a point behind. So they are, they are a team with ambitions. They are a team very much like Forest, who, are they're travellers. They're on the way. They're not just a holding team. They've got promotion. So there are similarities, not geographic. Channel 4, but there are similarities. They are. This was never going to be an easy match.
No, and of course the other thing that's sometimes a bit of the old cliche of an FA Cup leveller. Forest are now used to playing in the refined environs of the City Ground, and this was held at Hensford Town, which was a little bit more spit and sawdust, doesn't it? But in fairness to the Wolves fans, there were plenty of them, and they were very, very vocal throughout the match. You could hear them constantly on the effects mics on the television. Let's just come back to that thing I was saying about the team news, because Wolves did have 2 promotion-winning players in there, as well as 2 other ex-Reds. So we had former skipper and Forest legend Lindsay Harkin playing at right back for them. And I was mentioning to you in our WhatsApp chat, wasn't I? I thought Lindsay had retired to be an ambassador. It's like, she is an ambassador, but she's playing for Wolves.
Yeah, I think she loves football. And she can still play. She was playing in pretty good form last season to get there. So I'm not surprised, and good on her. If she loves getting out there and playing a game, hopefully when she does retire, eventually she'll probably be about 70. But then, she'll commit herself fully to Forest. But no, it was great to see her. It was like, there's a, you wanted her to be scored against.
It's easy to say about players who are like the wrong side of 30 as well, but I mean, she does show every sign of being, the good old fashioned model pro. So she's turning out against her girlhood club and the team that she skippered for so long, and yet she was still the ultimate professional for Wolves, and she was giving it everything. It didn't matter that she was playing against Forest. She wanted Wolves to win that match. Another player who I thought was actually Wolves, just spoiler alert, who I thought was Wolves' player of the match was Amy Sims, who also got promotion with us last season. And it was a little bit of a surprise that she was one of those that got let go, I thought.
Yeah, again, we had quite a clear out. I think we retained, I'm going to get done on numbers here, but 4 or 5, not too many. Yeah. Some of the ones I was surprised. But I've learned not to question Carly Davis's decisions, because she is a football genius, and I'm not gonna any other time sort of mansplain her squads. But yeah, I would have liked to have kept them. There was quite a few, to be honest. But then when I look at the team now, and I've got used to them playing now, and I've seen them playing, there are people, as you mentioned, Chantel Boy-Hilorka is just phenomenal. I'm very happy with what we've got. But it's lovely to see them. And also with Harkin as well. It's a great thing that she potentially is going to lead 2 promotion teams. She's going to shepherd 2 teams up to the WSL2. What an accolade at that stage of her career to be able to do that. Absolutely. But she's a fantastic, ambassador for women's football, really.
Yeah. Just for the sake of completeness, I will also point out that Charlotte Greengrass and Becky Anderson were also playing for Wolves, players who had good careers at Forest as well, but left the season before promotion. And I will also point out, for the sake of completeness, something that our erstwhile Forest women's correspondent Adam did point out over the summer, which is that in women's football, contracts are shorter because there's not that many professional clubs, even in WSL2. Not all of them are professional. So it is a bit more normal to see a big turnover of players at clubs from one season to the next. And obviously in Forest's case, they had to do it to try and make that step up, which is something that we've discussed 2 or 3 times, isn't it, Matt? Let's get on to the match. And the match couldn't have started much better because Chloe Mustakis took a corner in the 4th minute, and it was, let's say, bundled home by our skipper. Now, I'm going to ask you, how do you pronounce her surname? Because I pronounce it Georgia Bruffum, but the commentator on Channel 4 pronounced it Broham, and I want to know what you think.
I'm going to go totally off here. I think it's Browham.
Brown. Okay.
Brown. I've known someone with that surname, and I pronounce it Broham. Brown. Not an accent doesn't do it any favours.
In which case, I hold my hands up and I apologise to you, Captain Georgia. And
just call it that.
Yeah. And so, obviously, taking an early lead is a really good thing. And then we didn't have that long to wait before we doubled the lead. Mm-hmm. Now, Rachel Rowe has been in the team recently, and it's a bit of a strange one because she's obviously a very, very she's accoladed within the game. She's experienced. She's an international, and she couldn't get into the Forest team until Freya Thomas unfortunately got injured. But I thought she was possibly Forest Player of the Match in this one, and she not only won the ball, made good progress on the turnover, and then played a wonderful, wonderful through pass, which bisected the Wolves' defence. And Amy Claypole was through and made absolutely no mistake as the keeper came out to try and smother. And that was the moment of class in the entire match, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's you can see the step up that we've taken when you see stuff like that. Yeah, it felt at that point that we could go on for quite a few at this point. It did feel they weren't putting too much up. There wasn't too much going down our half. It felt this could easily be a drubbing at that point. We seemed to be walking them, but no, it wasn't to be.
Well, yeah, and Wolves had one chance of note in the first half where Emily Batty had to make a save from Beth Merrick. She'd cut in on the corner of the area and then had a bit of a curler. It's one of those you'd expect the keeper to save, but still it was like, And to be honest, even at that point, I thought Forest are better, but they're not as dominant as I'd like them to be, considering that we're supposed to have upgraded a division and upgraded the players. But nonetheless, at halftime, it was 2-0.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Witness the colossal boxing showdown nobody expected, live on Netflix. International superstar Jake Paul, the sport's most watched fighter, takes on Britain's two-time unified heavyweight world champion and Olympic gold medalist, Anthony A.J. Joshua, in the most dangerous and defining matchup of their careers. This is Judgment Day. Watch Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, Friday, December 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on Netflix.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Matt, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? This was the archetypal game of two halves.
Yeah, absolutely. And this seems to be characteristic of the women's of the women's team this season. It's often the other way around. We often have great second halves after, I think there was the first 6 matches were characterised by the fact that we always scored. We always scored against we always conceded in the first half, scored in the second, and often came back and won. So I used to think there's some magic in the halftime chat. Something was being said, some magic was being given. But no, this was reverse. So, I was sitting there thinking, well, if we get 2 in the first half, we're going to get 5 in the second half. But they came out and they looked, I don't know, tired's not really a word, they just looked a little less up for it in the second half. They just didn't seem to have a sense of urgency, a sense of wanting it. And we've got absolutely credit to Wolves. They did come out a lot. Their shoulders weren't down. They were up for it. They were looking for a win there, and they I think they stunned us slightly.
Well, yeah, and the warning sign came when from a corner Anna Morford got a looping header which was heading towards the top corner, and I genuinely thought it's in, and somehow Emily Batty not only scrambled away back, but put out a Mr. Tickle-like arm to claw it out. And I think she just pushed it onto the bar, didn't she, I think? Or just pulled it out from under the bar.
She's one of our. Yeah, I thought that was in as well. She is one of our people retained from the promotion season, and and I was slightly surprised by that because I thought we'd get we'd really step up. But she's proven her worth in the division. She's
definitely making the step up by all accounts.
For sure,
she was called into action again. So there was. Let's try and put things in order. So Wolves did score a goal, and this was a long-range free kick from near the halfway line. Anna Morfoot took the kick. Her defensive partner, Georgia Marshall, stooped to try and head it. It kind of glanced off Marshall's head and then hit Chloe Mustaki on the back, which deflected it in. So I'm afraid to the Wolves player, it does have to go down as a Mustaki own goal. And I think that was pretty much the reason why Batty couldn't get to it. And then there was more saves for Batty to make, but not before Carly made some changes to the team. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that Forest had made changes to the starting 11 by bringing in Tuva Almqvist instead of Jessie Stapleton, which meant moving from 3 at the back to 4-3-3. And although actually I didn't think that Almqvist did anything wrong. In fact, she was the recipient of a rather tasty challenge, which, if VAR existed in the women's game, I would have seen a red card. But it doesn't, and it didn't. It was not malicious, but it was reckless, I would say. And anyway, so Almqvist was one of those who came off. Along with, and then coming on in her place was Cara Hamilton, which meant that we went to a back 3 with Hamilton and Hamilton on the right side, and then we had a back 3 of Stapleton alongside Broham, or Captain Georgia, and Chloe Mustaki. So it was a slight change of shape, and Forest looked better. And the point I made in our group chat was that actually it was a good game management technique from Carly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she's a wonderful manager for that. There's no. She is fluid. She understands the game. She understands the pace of the game. She understands when to put subs on. Deanna Rose came on as well, which injects a little bit of, when we were looking slightly on the back foot, Deanna Rose can absolutely wrestle a game back, and she did. Although I don't think she's fully fit now by the looks of it. She would have played from the first, but she, and it was holding on.
As Baz and I made the point in our group chat. So there was that late save that Batty made. I think it's about 83rd minute. And again, it's Georgia Marshall who was having a go at goal and made a good stop from Batty. And then after that, Forest went into full, what Baz and I described as full Nuno ball, where they were playing it around the back, keeping the ball to kind of take out the sting from Wolves. And then Deanne Rose playing the kind of role of the pacey forward, just get the ball forward and let Deanne leg it after it.
To
relieve the pressure.
It's wonderful to watch. Again, I advise you get down the city ground and watch it whenever you can. Any distance, but she has that pace. There's times when you think we're stuck in our half, we're sort of hemmed in, and suddenly she'll get to the ball, fight it, and then she'll be down. She'll disappear down the other side, and she can just turn it around. And we needed that because we were in this sort of, as you say, we were soaking up a lot of pressure. There's a lot of
I'm just going to say it, Matt. We were under the cosh for 40 of those 45 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and then there was 7 minutes of stoppage time, and when the board went up, I think Wolves fans were going, "Come on, we can do this," and Forest fans were going, "What, 7?" But actually, they managed it incredibly well.
I think it's one of the longest periods of injury time I've actually seen in a women's match. So, but it's we needed that. We need that little bit of creativity to actually just sort of get out of there. But we did. We soaked it up. It wasn't pretty. I mean, like just the men's game when they played Wolves. You're not talking a pretty match. You're not talking. I think, but it was effective. We contained them well enough. Yeah. We crowded out their defence enough. Crowded out their attack enough. Defence to actually, but they don't make it easy, do they? It is no, but we have to give credit to Wolves. They are a team with, as I said, they're huge ambitions. This isn't like this wouldn't have been a giant killing had they overcome us. You know, this would have been a match you would have probably, sort of could have gone any way. They knocked us out in 2021? I think they kicked us out the FA Cup. So, I was glad we overcame them. But I think maybe slightly once we got to probably, or it could have just been me, just misunderestimated how much they would want it.
No, I think it's fair to say that although Forest are showing that, they're making good progress in a higher division, but Wolves are showing that they've got the capacity, if they do get promotion this season, that they might be able to make a good show of it in WSL2. For the sake of completeness, I'm just going to go through the other substitutions. So, so I'd mentioned that Cara Hamilton came on for Tuva Elmqvist. We had Jessie Stapleton, who was coming on for Kirsty Smith, and Deanne Rose came on for Nayakari Garcia. Garcia is an interesting player. They made the point in the commentary that she's played for Real Madrid, and she has got something slightly different about her as a central midfielder, hasn't she?
Well, you look at the whole squad now, and there's such a mix in there. We've got all these international. Deanna Rose has won Olympic golds. We've got, it can be quite terrifying to sort of work out what playing style, how these are going to work together. We're not just. There's so much ability, so much change in there. Luckily, we've got a great tactician in Carly Davis to be able to manage those and sort of get those player styles actually working together well, and that seems to be gelling really well. It was very nervy at the start of the season, but it's really come together, and you do see some really interesting things. I talk her up far too much, but she deserves it. Chantal Boy-Halaka is just one of those sort of players that they've learned how to use her now and know that she can strike from anywhere. She's an absolute threat. No goalkeeper will feel safe when she's on the ball and across the halfway line. She scored from distance. She's nodded him in close by. She backheeled one at the City Ground the other week. She is a real threat.
And obviously, let's go back to just very, very briefly. It's worth pointing out that our number 9 last season was Mel Johnson, who's on mat leave this season, as having 2 babies because one's not enough for her. Same with goals, and it means Amy Claypole's getting plenty of chances in the number 9 role. And because Forest tend to play either 3-4-3 or 4-3-3, once Deanne Rose gets back to fitness, you can just imagine that it would absolutely terrify defences at any level if they're faced with either Claypole or Johnson at number 9, with Boyd-Lorca and Rose either side. And then we've got players like Almqvist who are she's not bad. You look at the attributes of Boyd-Lorca and Rose in terms of their pace, their physicality and everything. And that's got to be terrifying for opposition defences, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, we're very excited to take when it joined in over summer and stuff. It was, would this work? And it does work. And that is, you can't ask for more than that, really. How well we've actually done this season, just reflecting on that.
And Carly obviously is the person managing that, and she admitted in the post-match interview, you know what, we weren't good today. We're capable of so much better.
Yeah.
And I suspect that, like the men's team, as we were discussing maybe a week or so ago, before the men's team's fantastic victory at the weekend, we were saying, there's signs of fatigue. I think there was a little bit of fatigue in the legs and in the minds with the team on Saturday against Wolves. And it's worth pointing out that although the next match is coming up just this Sunday against Charlton away, after that there is a little break until the 11th of January. And so the next game at the City Ground is against Bristol City on Sunday, the 11th of January at 2 p.m. Tickets are now available. So if you can't get tickets for the men's team, then this is by far the next best thing. And it's a really good occasion. You take your kids, don't you, Matt? And
I do, yeah.
So it's a fabulous occasion to go to, a really good atmosphere. And so I'm going to say thank you to the women's team. Thank you to Carly. Thank you to Matt. Now, just a little bit of breaking news that we want to bring you before we go and take a break, which is that we sent our condolences to Evangelos Maronakis and his family following the death of his mother. The men's and women's first teams at all levels were conducting a minute's silence. And I think that's a sign of the respect that the club and all within the club hold Mr. Marinakis and his family. Now, we'll be back in just a minute with our friend Steve Burns to talk about the men's team.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
In America, half of every dollar spent on brand medicines goes to entities who don't make them. While middlemen like PBMs and 340B hospitals drive up costs, Biopharma is investing $500 billion in new infrastructure and manufacturing here at home, and helping patients buy medicines directly at lower prices. Tell Washington to end middlemen markups and put American patients first. Visit phrma.org/middlemen.
Welcome to Yatesys Espresso Bar.
Hello and welcome back to Yatesys Espresso Bar, and it's part 2 of our show here, and for this part we're joined by friend of the pod and occasional guest Steve Burns. How you doing, Steve?
I'm very good, thank you. Very nice of you to have me back again.
Oh, always a pleasure, always a pleasure. So in part 1 of today's podcast, we heard about a little bit about the women's team, and now it's time to come back to the men's team. And if in part 1 we're reflecting a little bit about how the women have progressed and different tactical options and so on and so forth, I think it adds a different dimension to when you think about the men's team, because the good thing about the women's team is they've had the same head coach for a good while now, who's been able to implement certain tactics and ways of being. And let's be honest, the men's team haven't. I think it's fair to say that, let's be diplomatic and let's say we lost to Nuno, and then we engaged upon an experiment that was doomed to failure right from the very start with the Australian. Would you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, I would. And I think I've probably said on this podcast before, I think the first game against Brentford, I sat in the upper club stand watching down and being absolutely amazed at what I was seeing, and couldn't actually believe it was my team that I was watching. But obviously things changed very quickly following on from that. And certainly the defeat against West Ham at the City Ground was, extremely painful to take. And then things got even worse. And I tend to be quite optimistic when a manager comes in. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But you could see that the team just weren't playing for Ange. You could see that the results weren't coming. I think he was unlucky at times as well. I think there were some games that didn't go his way, just at the last minute. But that was a very, very dark period in this season.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying almost, yes, it did not go according to plan. And if we look at the table as it is now, the key thing to note is that Forest are currently on 18 points. We're in 16th position as of Tuesday, the 16th of December, when we're recording this. And I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, yeah, well, you know what? If we take out the number of games where Andrew's in charge, where lest we forget we did not win a match, that actually Forest would be certainly comfortably mid-table, but almost certainly, and I've not done the maths for a little while, but a few weeks ago, it was very apparent that Forest would have been very much in the top half and actually probably pushing for Europe once again if we take out those 39 days.
Yeah, and if you look at the last 8 games, so 13 points, those are really, really strong results to be turning in. And you have to bear in mind, within those 8 fixtures, we've had our annual away defeat to Bournemouth as well, which is obviously something that's scheduled in every year. And is probably more dependable than Christmas.
Yeah, I can share, listeners, with you that when we were arranging to have our Bournemouth viewpoint from the opposition, I contacted John from the Cherries Red Army channel, and I just said, would you mind doing us another voice clip after you win against us on Saturday? And he was delighted to oblige, as you can imagine. So let's have a little reflection then. Obviously, we've seen an upturn in form in the league. Crucially, we've also managed to have an upturn in form in the Europa League. And obviously, a slightly different challenge for a new manager coming in, because let's be honest, most of the time when a manager is coming in, it is, as it was in the case with Dyche, basically because the previous manager had ballsed up in some way, shape or form. And so, in that respect, it's unusual to come in and find a team where actually you've got a good degree of talent. There's certainly been money spent on it. And they're also in Europe. It's just that they're in terrible, terrible form. And if we look at the form since Dyche has come in, actually, yeah, we've lost to Bournemouth and we've also lost to Brighton and Everton. But again, you look at the form table, and I actually think all the results have pretty much gone the way that you'd expect for Forest, in the sense of we drew against Man United, and for all that Man United are very Man United-y, they're the new Spurs in that sense. Spurs are very Spursy. So we drew against Man United, and who are currently in 5th place. We've beaten Leeds and Liverpool, who are, not amazing, and most recently Spurs. And the Wolves match, obviously, it was hard going. But with a cold midweek away match, you could argue the result was the most important thing, especially that we were decimated by injuries and quite fatigued. So in that respect, I think that everything's kind of going according to form, kind of the way you'd expect for a team who are an upwardly mobile, upper mid-table, possibly better squads like we've got.
Yeah, and I think we have to recognise that Dyche is doing a really good job here. He's got some significant challenges with players that he thought he would be able to count on who have been, injured. We've obviously had Wood out for a long period of time. Zinchenko's been out as well. Ola Aina, who would be clearly a first choice player, he's been out for the whole season. You have Murillo out for a significant period of time as well, and we always look so much weaker without him on the pitch as a starting point. So he's having to juggle that again. You can take backward into the list of injured players that have been out and only now coming back in, and then Yatesy goes and pulls his hamstring as well. So he's got some significant challenges in terms of injuries, but he seems to be navigating those really well. And I think the fact he was able to make the changes that he did away at Utrecht, the substitutions that he made to bring on the quality at half-time in terms of Sangare coming on and Anderson, and then bring on Gibbs-White towards the end to help the attack. That shows that he's prepared to shuffle the pack. And then again, shuffle the pack again for our game against Spurs, where granted Spurs were extremely average, but Forest were absolutely on fire on Sunday, and it was an absolute joy to watch.
And I mean, obviously you talked about the Europa League campaign and the fact that he's able to make changes, but when things were looking a bit iffy, he was able to bring on the players. And you kind of wondered in those situations, should we need to rely upon bringing in the Sangares and Andersons and Gibbs-Whites and Jesuses to try and rescue the match? But on the other hand, actually, you look at the fact that against Spurs, it's actually almost breathed new life into those players. Anderson had his best match for quite a while. As we mentioned in our match report, Baz and Tom made the point of saying, he's looked like he's been, labouring a little bit recently. Sungare was absolutely outstanding and my player of the match. And Jesus, he continues to be a revelation, but it did give him enough of a rest while not bringing him in as a sub and not disrupting his contribution to the league form. So it's a sign that I think there's more judgment than luck there. Am I right?
Yeah, I'd go with that. I think there's a school of thought, which is that when you have these kind of games, allowing a player to get out for 45 minutes or so, or 20, 30 minutes is actually good for them. It's not necessarily giving them a full 100% rest, but it's giving them a chance to run out, stretch the legs, keep match fitness, keep sharpness. And I think we've certainly seen that with the likes of Sangare, that consistency of being able to play him time and time again this season. And I think with Dyche's guidance, he's become the player we always hoped he would be.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a strange one, isn't it? Like he's one of those. He's probably one of the most talked about or most debated signings in the Premier League era for Forest. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a discussion for another time, maybe. But when you saw him play on Sunday, he was absolutely pivotal to everything good that Forest did. And crucially, again, coming back to how players are used, another little tweak that I've noticed, and we'll come back to this in our Football Terrorist show at the weekend, but another tweak I've noticed is that under Nuno, and we saw that it was very much a case that Sungaro was asked to be more of a sitting player and Anderson to provide a bit of forward impetus, matching their shirt numbers. But actually, we've had a lot more kind of back and forth and to and fro, which means Sungare has been able to flex his chops a little bit, getting forward. And we saw that obviously to devastating effect on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, he had the header in the first half, which hit the post. He attacked that absolutely brilliantly, late run into the box. And then the goal itself, I was sat right behind it as he struck it. And it was a joy to watch that one sailing. So, yeah, I think that ability for him and Anderson to be able to interchange, one going deep, one going further up the pitch is working really well. I mean, what's also funny from my perspective is I sit near the world's most negative season ticket holders, who at the beginning of the season were saying that Sangare isn't fit to play for a pub team. And now they refer to him as the GOAT. So it's amazing how quickly people's opinions can change.
Gone from the donkey to the goat. Well, there you go. Yeah, and I would point out, and I do need to say this, which is that Sangare's goal, to me, is probably my favourite Forest goal of this season, purely and simply because, yes, there was a brilliant kind of, Forest were buzzing at that point. We'd seen that move of like 25 odd passes, which broke down. And then we saw that lay across. And I just thought, he's got to hit that, but you can't just hit it. The technique he used by cutting across the ball so it faded away from Vicario in the goal to go towards the top corner, hit the post and go in. That's a sign of a player who's playing with confidence.
Oh, definitely. And you kind of hope, you know when players hit a shot like that, you hear the commentators say he'll never hit a ball sweeter in his career. Well, there's kind of me hoping he will, because I mean that was just sensational. It was a great finish.
That's a bit demanding of you, isn't it?
Well,
let's just reflect a little bit upon the Europa League as well. If you think about it, when the Australian was dispatched with, we were not looking good in the Europa League, and it was really, there's a sense of there being a good chance to do something, and that was fading away. And now you could argue, looking at it, Midtjylland only got displaced from the top of the Europa League in the last round of matches. And so they've been performing, way out of their skin in Europe. Forest are currently in 11th in the 36-team league, but they have got a pretty good chance of making that top 8 and getting a bye through to the knockout stage. However, I think it's fair to say that Braga and Ferencváros are going to be likely to be tougher opponents than Malmö and Utrecht, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, both of them, they're sitting in the top 8 at the moment, so 6th and 7th. Certainly, Utrecht didn't seem to offer a huge amount, and it was all very much one-way traffic until John Victor decided to go for a bit of a run. It will be a challenge, I think, for them to get some good results against those, but one of those games at the City Ground, crowd behind them, I think it's possible they can get top 8. But certainly looking good that we've qualified for the next round, even if it is through the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish off with, just looking at the fixtures as well, I think one of the key things to notice right now is we've got something very, very unusual, which is we've actually got a chance for the players to have a bit of a rest before the next game, which is on the 22nd against Fulham. And that's something that presumably Dyche and his coaching staff will be thinking is manna from heaven, bearing in mind that we've had this relentless fixture list, which has probably contributed to things like the Yates hamstring injury and other players like falling by the wayside, and also the lack of ability to kind of introduce players who are on their way back from injury. So, for example, I was wondering on Sunday why it was that when he did bring off Hudson-Odoi, why he put on Dan Ndoye rather than introduce Dylan Bakwa. Well, maybe it's just that chance of actually, if you go too soon, you end up with things like the Yates hamstring.
Yeah, and I think the other benefit as well that we're going to have having a clear week is the ability to get the players down on the training pitch. And, rather than it just being, rest, learn your tactics for the next game and then off you go again, actually chance to implement some of the things that he's wanting to. So, yeah, I'm quite optimistic. I think as well, we've got Fulham on Monday. They are very, very hot and cold at the moment. I think there's an opportunity there, depending on which version of Fulham actually turns up. And then the 27th, Man City at home. I mean, it's always great around Christmas to have a game like that. So, yeah, really looking forward to that one.
And that's quickly followed by the chance to get one back over Everton at the City Ground on the 30th of December. Just on the topic of Fulham, yeah, they have blown hot and cold. They're slightly less in trouble than they were a couple of weeks ago. They've managed to string a few results together. But even then, they're still only 2 points ahead of us. So
it's fascinating seeing us being able to reel in teams like Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, who once they seemed, head and shoulders above us, but now actually being able to claw them back in again.
Yeah, and I think it's also fair to say that although Fulham have, when they've looked good, they've looked much more comfortable than they did earlier in the season, but there's still signs that Marco Silva's still a bit unsettled, and there's still signs that maybe that's transmitting down to the players a little bit.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Like I say, they've had a couple of good results recently, but again, hot and cold, and who knows what will happen under the lights on Monday.
Well, all I'm saying is that bearing in mind that Marco Silva obviously worked under the big man at Olympiacos, if the result doesn't go our way next Monday, there may well be a horse's head for Christmas. That brings us to the end of this episode of YATESY'S Espresso Bar. Please join us once again after the weekend when we will be bringing you our 50th podcast of the season in a festive edition of our Football Terrors show, where we'll be discussing a little bit more about some of the themes that have dominated the season: injuries, form, different managers, and so on. And we'll also be bringing you our 1865 Christmas quiz. In the meantime, I'm going to say thank you very much to Matt for part 1, and thank you to Steve Burns for joining us in part 2 of this particular podcast. And come on, you Reds!
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
And Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu, is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.